Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show. Hi there, it's Simone Morris, host of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. How are you all doing this week? I really hope well. I can't believe it's July, and you probably heard me say I can't believe it's June. I just can't believe how fast this year is going by. The summer has been treating me well with good weather. It has been a bit rainy in Connecticut, but I am enjoying the fact that I get to be alive yet another day, and I get to connect with folks interested in taking ownership of their careers. This past week, I had some celebrations on my side, and I'm very excited to announce that I have been accepted to be a contributor to the Entrepreneur.com platform. I'm super excited about sharing my thought leadership, my wisdom, etc. on that platform. So stay tuned to hearing more about my journey and what I'm sharing on that platform. I also had an article drop on the Good Men Project website. So I think it's goodmenproject.com. You can look for Simone Morris and find that article. That's pretty exciting. And it's exciting to watch things unfold that I have been thinking about for a while, but they're starting to unfold and unfolding during this time. What I would say to you is, whatever your goal is for yourself, that you make sure that you, as always, have a plan. Take some time to think through your thoughts. I always tell that to my clients. Make time on your calendar to think. Make time on your calendar to plan. So take time to make a plan for whatever it is you want to achieve in your career. Make sure you have the right partners who are supporting your journey. And when you think about partners, think about the fact that they're not always free. And so, I believe in the power of coaching, and that goes for me as well. So I have a support team that helps me to be successful. And I wish I knew that many, many years ago when I was limping by in my career, expecting things to just happen from good work. And I now know better that it's not just a matter of delivering good work. That's a part of the formula to deliver excellent work. Yes, that's required too, but it's not the only thing that's in the formula. So my advice to you would be to really continue to bet on yourself. If you're not betting on yourself, be sure to bet on yourself and bet strong. Be a better investor in your development than your organization or other people. And sometimes that's not always money. It could be time. I have been investing an inordinate amount of time during this COVID season, where I'm doing a lot of podcasts and I'm learning from a lot of webinars and I'm taking classes. And I said to myself, I'm going to get I'm going to get a couple binders, because each of these programs that I've invested in, there's some really good content, and I want to go back and apply what I have learned. And so I would say to you, in terms of learning, that you can be investing in your development during this time. It's really great that you're listening to the podcast, because that is an investment of your time in uplifting yourself and staying focused and staying in the driver's seat for your career. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. It's another goodie. And without further ado, here's this week's episode. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. This week, I'm pleased to have with me Denise Dagostino. She is a 30-year HR executive, an entrepreneur, and a co-founder of a women's leadership development program called her new standard. Denise, welcome to the
Excited to
show.
be here.
Awesome. Well, let us jump right into the conversation. Please tell our listeners when and how you knew you were in the driver's seat for your career.
That is such a good question. And when you ask it, I think to myself, wow, sometimes I feel fully in the driver's seat and other times I think I'm in the back seat. So I'm not quite sure that once you get in the driver's seat, you always stay there. But I will say originally I definitely embarked to be my own driver when I made decisions that were contrary to what my bosses, who cared quite a bit about me, thought I should be doing. So it was when I took the courage to take a decision for myself that was against what others that I thought, knew the best things for me, and anything fabulous, which was good.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit more details around that. So what's an example, of you demonstrating your driver's seat behavior?
Yeah. So I'll give it to you by way of example. When I worked back in the beginning of my career, first after 4 years of working, I was asked if I would want to work and live abroad in Switzerland. And on one hand, it scared the heck out of me, but on the other, I couldn't wait to experience, quite frankly, the unknown. And I jumped on it and said yes right away. Obviously, the bosses in the US didn't love the idea because it created a vacancy with them, but eventually we all came around to it and it was fabulous. And it taught me to be really okay with being uncomfortable, not knowing, and really open up and embracing everything that was different and unknown to me. So that to me was a huge driver's seat moment.
What an exciting opportunity. It sounds fabulous. So when you, with that international experience, what advice can you give to our listeners just about embracing risk in their careers? Because it sounds like you had to take a risk to go against the grain and then to go to a different country and thrive there. What can you tell us about having an appreciation for taking risk in our careers?
Yeah, it's so important, incredibly important to take risks. I would encourage your listeners and anybody that wants to grow and step up in their career to try new things, to say yes to those opportunities that might make you slightly uncomfortable, but will expand your experience or your knowledge, and to be okay without it being perfect. I found that while the world is a big place, people all around, quite frankly, are there to support and help you, and in some cases challenge you. So I say, say yes, take the risk, and don't expect yourself to be perfect, and get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Mm. That sounds great. So knowing what you know from being in corporate America and being outside of corporate America, what would you say is your formula for owning your career, Denise?
I would say, so for me, being grounded and being myself, it has served me very well. I had the opportunity while in Bayer Healthcare Pharmaceuticals and working with many people around the world. I found that when you are able to be grounded in who you are, what your strengths are, what your skills are, what things maybe you needed to be careful of or watch out for, when you're grounded and appreciative of who you are, then you can be yourself amongst other people. And I think that's when your real sparkle shines. So for me, that formula is critical. I will add, as it relates to other people, I think caring genuinely having respect for all people, all differences is so important. And to engage authentically yourself, but in a very, very sincere way. And then I have to say the third part of my formula would be get it done. If you don't produce results, all the fun, all the other stuff might not matter to those you're working for or yourself.
Absolutely. I have this T-shirt, the Nike "Just Do It," and absolutely, it's all about consistent results. That's a critical part of the formula. I completely agree with what you're saying. So, can you think back to a time where it wasn't evidently clear for you that you were in the driver's seat? I know you alluded to that in the beginning of the conversation, and some of my other guests have talked about being outside of the car, the back seat, pushing the car, and I love this conversation. So what moment, or is there a moment that comes to mind where you took your hands off the wheel and others were calling the shots for your career, and how were you able to pivot?
As you're asking the question, I'm thinking back to the time in my career when I was asked to take a director level role, which was a fairly significant HR business partner role for a sizable medical device business. And I, of course, said no. And part of it was perhaps my fear. Part of it was not being certain I could do that broad scope of a role. And the other part was personal. I wanted not to have to work, 16-hour days, which typically at the more senior level in the company, that was expected. And so it was real fun. I remember vividly, I was called multiple times to the head of HR, the global head of HR, and the president of the division, until actually I said yes to the opportunity. And I said yes on my terms, though. So it opened up a conversation around what I needed to have happen in order for me to be able to give 100% to this role. And I have to say that launched my career in a really beautiful way. But I had to get out of my own way and advocate in a way for myself, not working the 16-hour days, not being, expected to be on calls at 3 a.m. in the morning, and things like that, that were a little bit, expected but crazy.
Right. Give us because you have a unique background with extensive HR experience. So you just mentioned standing up for yourself, advocating. I wonder if you can give us some strategies, because you know what it's like on the other side. And so when one is advocating, how can people do it right in terms of conversations with HR and advocating for themselves? What are some tips that you would give them on how they can advocate for themselves in the best way?
Yeah, and thanks for asking that question. I spent roughly 30 years as an HR, different areas of HR, but an HR business partner, and have built incredibly meaningful relationships with people in a large global organization. I would say that you need to start building those strategic relationships. Now, it isn't impossible to advocate for yourself if with HR, if you've never met with somebody, but it doesn't hurt to get to know them. People like to do and trust doing business with those that they know. And so I would suggest, look, take a step to introduce yourself if you haven't already. Let them know who you are and what you like to do, what you think you're good at. And perhaps when you need support, you can go to them and ask them for their advice, feedback, or help. So I would say create that relationship now. Don't wait. Get them in your corner. But when you do go to them, be thoughtful and clear about what your aspiration is or your need is, and be specific about what you want them to do. They'll be able to tell you if they can help you or not. But I think getting that first initial connection is so important before you even need anything.
Yeah, yeah. I know that's a lot of advice out there is, start building these relationships before you need them. And I completely agree with you. So as we begin to embrace this new normal, some folks have been asking me, well, how do I reach out virtually to build these relationships? I'm interested in your take on that question as we pivot to this new predominantly virtual way of connecting, right? So what are some things that you can share that have worked for you, or that you can advise our listeners just on how to make the most of this time virtually for building strategic relationships?
Yeah, if I may, her new standard, the work we do accelerating women leaders, the first thing we advocate that women do or anybody does is self-care, right? So I think you need to be in a good space. You need to take some time, go for a walk, get some exercise, eat as healthy as you can, be in a good space for you. And then I would say pick a person or two a week to reach out to. I've done that, as we're pivoting to virtual. I've reached out to a few of our clients and I've just said, how are you doing? And Fridays, a couple of Fridays, I dedicate a few hours and I get on the phone with different clients, different folks that I work with, and just ask them, how are you? Because building those strategic or building relationships, it's a give and take, right? You've got to put, they say, deposits in the the relationship bank account before you can even think to take them out. So, I like to hear what people are doing, see if I can support or help them. So I would say pick a person or two, but come from a very genuine place and be in your best headspace. If you're not, it could come across as griping or complaining or just low energy. And we really need positive energy at this time if you can muster it up.
Absolutely. Glass half full perspective. And I was thinking of the resource that's a great one for networking listeners. Just Never Eat Alone is a good book resource for building relationships. But absolutely, this is the time. And I think some folks are getting inundated by requests to connect with people. But I love what you say about really bite size, but really making sure you fuel up yourself first before
Yes.
you go out there to engage with others, because they can tell if you're coming from, if your energy is low, like you said, Denise. And
Mhm.
so I definitely can tell, because you vibe off of others. So if there's
Right.
positive energy already, then it fosters more positive. But if you're coming from a lower place of energy, you can feel the difference.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And this is a tough time for everybody, right? I hear from my clients that, juggling all the multiple demands, whether they're teaching kids at home, caring for elders, or they have their own issues. So I think it is a time that you have to, you know, practice mindfulness, be a little bit more compassionate for yourself and others, and reset expectations so that you don't feel overwhelmed. We've got to be in it for the long haul. And I think from a career perspective, Simone, just to add, I know it's hard, but I would encourage everybody to be mindful of how they show up on these Zoom calls or phone calls, and minimize noise where you can, get focused so that many things aren't distracting you. you know People can step up at this time and really help, put themselves a step above, and stand out. So it also presents an opportunity for people to support their career growth. Might sound crazy, but I think it is.
I think that's great advice, Denise, because taking your foot off the gas, so to speak, uh, you still have to stay focused on owning your career even during this time. So I love that you're saying that, kind of pay attention and be intentional. I was relating to many things that you were saying, just giving yourself grace, just, checking your expectations, because I'm a list person. So in the beginning, I've got these long lists, and I have a 4-year-old at home. So, you have to be kind to yourself. You have to fuel up yourself. You have to, check your expectations, and maybe chunk things up a bit more. So spot on advice, really. Are there any resources over time, whether it's books, websites, or tools, that you think are effective in really soaring in your career or owning your career?
I'm a big fan of reading different articles, those articles that hyperlink you to everywhere else. But I love the work that Harvard Business Review does, and often I'll look there for topics that are of interest, how to influence better, how to have executive presence. And so I like HBR as a go-to resource. It typically pushes you into other areas that you could take a look at. The other book that I like to go to it's called The Work of Leaders, and it's published by Wiley, and it's a compilation of all different thought leaders in business. And it works on a model called vision, alignment, and execution. And for me, simplicity just helps, right? You can remember it. It's, what is your vision, whether it's your vision for your career or it's your vision for your company or your department. What's the vision? And there's aspects to that. How do you get alignment? How do you make sure that you either can bring people along on your journey, or that you are ironing out any differences that you have to get to a really good result, and then stepping into execution. So for me, those two art vehicles have been helpful for me. Yeah, there's so much that nowadays with TED Talks and podcasts that I just love to listen to, but those would be two go-to resources that I like to use.
Great. We have someone coming up this season, actually, who is writing a column for the Harvard Business Review. So that episode should be coming out soon. But yeah, definitely really great content. And there's so much content out there. Last night I was writing a newsletter for my community, and I was just telling them to take advantage of the learning that's offered, but prioritize, because it's everywhere you turn. Like you said, the TED Talks, the articles, YouTube, LinkedIn. There's so much information available that you've got to take advantage of some of it during this time.
I often, as an executive coach, Simone, and I do this myself, I say to folks, read a book, read the article, watch the TED Talk, but take one thing away that then you can make actionable, for yourself. Don't worry about memorizing the whole thing. Just if you can take one good nugget away, then put it into action. That'll make you better, make you more happy, make you show up in a better way that you want. That's a gift, but yeah, it's so easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think definitely during this time there is, that even outside of this time, it's easy to get overwhelmed. So definitely prioritization strategies help during this time as well. As we begin to wrap up the interview, Denise, any parting words or advice that you would give to someone wanting to own their career?
Yeah, I would say do it. Come back to that Nike t-shirt, right? Just do it. Do it. Make a plan. And if something feels right to you, pursue it, do it. Step out of your fear or, your discomfort and do it. The other that to me is so helpful and continues to be in my life as a lifelong learner is listen for feedback, and seek it out. Get the good, get the bad. Some of the best learnings I came from or I got were from bad bosses, bad experiences. So, listen for the feedback and accept it in a way that it helps you. So do it and listen to the feedback.
Accept it in a way that helps you. What great advice is that? Accept it in a way that helps you. You have to listen to that, listeners, because that is just really one of those nuggets that Denise was talking about before, that one good nugget. Denise, as we wrap up again, let me just ask you, because I want to know, if you were to come up with a title of a book for your body of work in your career, what would that book title be?
Oh, wow. That is a tough question, Simone. I have two I would put out there. Believe and be the CEO of your career. And I really believe in the concept of being grounded. So get grounded and be you.
Nice. Please tell our listeners how they can stay connected with you if they'd like to after this episode.
Oh, I would love to hear from folks. You can reach me at Denise, Denise, at Her New Standard, one word, hernewstandard.com.
Wonderful. Well, Denise, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast and to learn from your vast experience. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Simone, thank you for the work that you do. I think it's so meaningful for people. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.